You're welcome back. Well, 50 years ago tomorrow, the Beatles played their only ever concerts in the Republic of Ireland. There were 2 gigs that took place on the same evening at the Adelphi Cinema in Dublin. Well, the Dublin Beatles Festival will mark the event over the next 4 days. Midweek's Michael Ryan has been taking a look back.
1, 2, 3, 4!
At 6:30 on the evening of November 7th, 1963, Ireland got its first and only taste of Beatlemania. This rare footage shows John, Paul, George and Ringo in action at the Adelphi Cinema as the crowds whip themselves into a frenzy. When the people from the first gig left the venue, they were met by people coming in for the second, which was due to start at 9 o'clock. Newspaper reports from the time talk of riots on Abbey Street outside the cinema. There was even a car overturned and several arrests made. Ireland had never seen the likes of it before. Nowadays, this is the place where the Adelphi used to stand. The cinema was torn down in 1995. It's now the goods inwards entrance for Arnotts. The department store has put up some of the original signage to mark the 50th anniversary. Keith Cairns was a 14-year-old schoolboy at the gig. 50 years later, he still has his ticket sellotaped onto the back of his Revolver album.
The warm-up acts meant nothing. There was a comedian, there were girl singers, nothing mattered until the MC, who was the comedian, he came out on eventually, standing in front of the curtain, and he said, now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the 4 guys from Liverpool, and when he got to John, total mayhem.
The place went nuts, did it?
Nuts, absolutely nuts. You didn't hear John, you didn't hear Paul, George or Ringo. Complete mayhem. And to, you know, as a 14-year-old as I was then, to describe the atmosphere, it was just incredible, like nothing we'd ever seen before. So the place went wild.
We've heard of Beatlemania. I mean, people will have heard of what it is, but never have experienced it themselves. I mean, is it literally just a wall of sound?
Absolute wall of sound. Incredible. And we were fellas, so the girls were a million times worse than us. We all stood in the seats, and you had the guys or the usherettes saying, sit down, sit down. So how could you sit down? You couldn't see if you didn't stand up. So it was just mayhem, but a brilliant, you know, just a brilliant. I mean, every hair in the back of your head was standing up. What we saw that night was just like somebody coming down from Mars. I had seen the light.
After the gig, the fans were so eager to get a hold of the band that the Fab Four had to escape in the back of an Evening Herald delivery van. The newspaper's photographer, Jack Murphy, was inside the van with them and took this photo. The band then went to Groom's Hotel on O'Connell Street for drinks. It's now called Cassidy's. Afterwards, it was off to a house party somewhere in Sandymount. No one has ever revealed exactly where the house was or who owned it. Then it was back here to the Gresham Hotel for a few hours' sleep.
I actually met them in the Gresham Hotel because my dad had arranged for us to go back and meet them, and they signed their album. I think the album I have signed by the four of them is Twist and Shout. That was their album they had, and everybody got a chance to say hello to them and shake their hands, and I was only, I think it was 13 at the time, and it was a fantastic experience to, nobody I think in Dublin had ever seen such a large crowd to have a band like that come to Dublin.
Tell us about that photo over your shoulder there.
Well, somebody gave me these photographs. There was 2 of them. This is one, and somebody else has the other photograph. I believe this was taken outside the Gresham Hotel on the day after the gig. And that photograph has never been seen before. It's the first time it's been seen. And believe it or not, it was meant for Paul McCartney. We were meant to meet Paul McCartney when he was here, I think a year ago or 2 years ago in the RDS. But things got a bit sort of haywire and we couldn't get to meet him. So we never actually gave it to him. So I still have it.
When the Beatles visited in 1963, Ireland wasn't exactly swinging, but change was in the air, and it wasn't long before it caught on here too.
It was a period of transition, I think, in Ireland. I mean, I think we were leaving a period in the 1950s. I think it was very marked by an era of De Valera, which was kind of economically insular, but also very socially conservative. I think at that time as well, there was this idea that you could kind of preserve kind of Irish identity by remaining insular. I think when we go into the 60s up to 63, I think the advent of the Beatles really kind of shows how Ireland was as open to these outside cultural influences as anyone else.
They got all these awards from the Queen and all the rest of it. And despite all these awards, etc., they were never establishment. They were always at least 2 steps ahead. And the Beatles were the band who seemed to be plugged into some sort of a special cosmic pop consciousness that nobody else knew about. And it just, you know, obliterated everything in front of them. And I'm talking about culture, I'm talking about fashion, I'm talking about swing in London and others, and just the way everything came, and then by 69 landing on the moon kind of thing. The Beatles landed on the moon. They did all this, whether you like it or not. It's weird.
To celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Dublin concerts, Arnotts has set up an exhibition in its Henry Street windows. On display, 4 suits worn by the band. They're believed to be the only complete surviving set of 4 anywhere in the world. There's also one of Paul's trademark Hofner bass guitars, signed by the Beatle himself.
What we have in our Henry Street windows is 4 original suits worn by the Beatles themselves during their promoting of A Hard Day's Night in 1964.
Right. Now, the thing that actually strikes me about looking at them, these 2 here are George and Ringo's, is that what you said? Yeah, they look quite small.
They are actually quite small suits. I think they're all about a 28-inch waist and a 29-inch leg, so all 4 of them are pretty much around the same size.
I never realised the Beatles were so skinny.
Yeah, it's quite deceptive, of course, on camera, so I've never seen them in person, but the suits themselves are tiny.
And it's very much handled with care, isn't it?
Very much so, yes. White coats and gloves all the way, definitely.
Really?
Yes, the professionals who came to install, yes, it's quite high security on them, to be honest.
And you literally have to have white gloves handling these suits.
Well, they're part of history. You really don't want to mark them or stain them in any way, so I think it is quite important.
Tell us, have you had much interest from onlookers? You know, do people stop and have a look at the suits? Oh, they are part of history.
Yeah, it really has generated a lot of interest. There's so many people stopping, wanting to get their pictures taken with it, taking pictures of it themselves. So there's a lot of people who have commented and said that they were there on the night and they remember it, and it's great to hear the stories that come out from that.
Starting tomorrow, the Dublin Beatles Festival will run for the next 4 days to celebrate the 50th anniversary. There's a packed programme with over 20 tribute bands, contemporary musicians, talks, art and memorabilia.
We're going to be here in the Grand Social on Friday for Fab Friday and on Saturday for Sadie Saturday, taking over the whole venue with music, art, memorabilia, DJs. It is completely going to be Beatles Central.
Okay, so apart from what's going on here, there are other things going on around the city as well over the next few days. Talk us through what's happening.
That's right. Well, we start off on Thursday, which is the 50th anniversary, and the Beatles, of course, stayed in the Gresham around the corner. So our opening ceremony, opening chorus, is in the Gresham on Thursday evening. We're going to have Get Back, the story of the Beatles, performing the original set of songs the Beatles played in '63, which is going to be fantastic.
There are sort of guest lectures and things happening across the city as well. Talk us through some of that.
So on Saturday we are looking forward to public Q&As. We have John Lennon's Original Quarrymen. Again, this is in the Gresham. And John Lennon's Original Quarrymen, of course, were John Lennon's first band, which evolved into the Beatles. And following that we have Colin Keane, the author, who's well known for his Bible of the Beatles encounters in Ireland. There's lots happening. There's also plays, a quiz, tribute bands, contemporary bands. All information is on www.dublinbeatlesfestival.com.
If you're looking for your own little piece of Beatles memorabilia, here you go. This Triumph Herald features on the cover of the Abbey Road album. Dublin man David Golding bought it at auction earlier this year in the UK, and it's now up for sale.
I've done a lot of work on it and I had some good fortune along the way. And the final piece of the jigsaw was on a large picture of the Abbey Road album. I noted a man standing behind the car, and it turned out that he was the original owner of the car. He's been identified as such by his daughter. Unfortunately, the man has passed away now, but this seems to be the missing piece in the jigsaw.
Can I ask, what are you planning to do with it?
Well, I have it up for sale. I'm a car dealer and everything is for sale. But if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I've enjoyed having it. I've enjoyed doing the research about it. And I'm sure there's people out there who'd have far more interest in having it than I would, so let them come forward.
Nice to have a little bit of history in your lockup here.
Oh, I'm delighted. It gives me something to talk about, and I get a fair bit of slagging for it as well.
What sort of slagging?
Oh, everything from my daughter. I was very embarrassed to be driving around such a battered car, to people. I mean, a lot of my cars have stories behind them, and I'm getting told there's another story from David Golding, and people tell me Paul McCartney's just got into your car, or even John Lennon was spotted standing over it there the other day.
Finally tonight, this is Jonathan Ward. He's one of the people lined up to play during the festival, and what better way to close than by hearing him doing what he does best.
And before too long, I fell in love with her.
You're a big Beatles fan, obviously, are you?
I'm a massive Beatles fan, yeah. Favourite group. Yeah.
Nice to be a little bit a part of history here.
It's great. It's great. It's a pleasure. You know, it's great the enthusiasm that's gone on so far with the festival, and it really is gearing up to be a great time.
Since I saw her standing there, oh, since I saw her standing there.
Well, if you'd like to get in touch with us,